Ice Age was not merely about squirrels and their relentless pursuit of nuts. It was also one of the most formidable challenges faced by the human race. Over thousands of years, glaciers extended as far as the equator, and a significant portion of the planet was transformed into a barren desert. The primary source of sustenance during this era was predominantly stones. Despite these harsh conditions, our ancestors managed not only to survive, but also to increase their brain size, acquiring characteristics during the Ice Age that continue to aid our survival to this day. How life looked during this harsh epoch is a fascinating subject, so settle in comfortably, friends, as we are about to delve into this topic with the help of our traditional hero, Mikhail the Wise, who lived around 16,000 years before our era in the territory of modern-day France, right in the midst of the Ice Age at its peak. First, let's understand what the Ice Age really was and why it is significant. Today, we know that the climate on our planet is variable. But just 200 years ago, this statement would have been considered nonsense. When Louis Agassiz published his report in 1837, titled The Theory of Glaciers, asserting that eras of global cooling alternated with eras of global warming, he was ridiculed. For instance, William Thomson Kelvin, after whom the Kelvin temperature unit is named, scientifically calculated the Earth's age to be somewhere between 20 and 100 million years. In the esteemed scientific community, the prevailing theory was that the Earth was slowly and steadily cooling. Meanwhile, the discovery of bones from warm-loving animals in the northern hemisphere and glacier traces closer to the equator were dismissed as conspiracy theories, with suggestions to don tinfoil hats. However, as it often happens, scientists quickly revised their views. We now clearly understand that ice ages recur with irregular periodicity, and we are currently living in one of them. We have been fortunate in three aspects. Historically, the Earth is more often cold than warm, as it is now. Interglacial periods, one of which we are currently experiencing, last only a few tens of thousands of years, whereas ice ages last about 100,000 years. And interglacial epochs are generally shorter than glacial ones. To be more precise, the ratio is 8 to 2, where 8 represents very cold conditions with glaciers extending almost to the south of Europe, and 2 represents a climate more or less like the present one. In essence, humanity has hit the jackpot in terms of the average historical climate. Our hero, Mikhail the Wise, had it tougher. He lived towards the end of the last ice age, also known as the Worm Glaciation, which began just over 100,000 years ago and ended approximately 12,000 years ago. The emergence of the first major cities and civilizations around 12,000 years ago is no coincidence, but likely the invisible hand of climate. During Mikhail's times, the permafrost reached the south of France and even the north of India. And where the ice did not reach, life did not necessarily become easier because ice, after all, is suddenly frozen water. When a large portion of the Earth's water is frozen, waiting for rain becomes problematic. Drought-prone savannas transformed even the tropical Amazon rainforests, which had remained unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs, were engulfed by glaciers, and the sea level across the planet dropped by 120 meters. This connected North America with Eurasia via a land bridge in the place of the modern-day Bering Strait. Our hero's more adventurous relatives rushed to conquer America, where they headed south, settled down, and became the ancestors of future Aztecs. Along with them went mammoths and bison, while wolves, horses, and, for example, camels went in the opposite direction to Eurasia. But we are interested in people. At first glance, it seems that they lived in hell. However, in reality, things were not so bad for our hero Mikhail the Wise. The reason for this was the tundra steppe. Intuitively, it seems that Mikhail, 18,000 years ago, saw nothing but ice before him. In reality, even the modern tundra, somewhere under Salakard, is not the best analogy. It would be much more accurate to imagine an African savanna with slightly different vegetation, but the same grassy fields and fir trees instead of eucalyptus. The tundra during the Ice Age was doing quite well because in addition to the difficulty with rain, there was also a problem with snow. And despite the cold, grass grew even in winter, serving as excellent fodder for the hallmark of the Ice Age, mammoths. In turn, they served as food for the most dangerous predator of that era, humans. People like our hero lived in small tribes. The organization of large settlements was still far off, at least because there were more grounded concerns, such as how to survive, what to eat, and where to sleep. The dry climate, 6 degrees colder than the current one, huge animals that needed to be hunted, and the constant change of residents because all the berries in the area had already been picked, nature posed many challenges to Ice Age humans. Our ancestors solved them with the most creative approach possible. The diet of North American Aborigines, for example, consisted of 80 to 90% buffaloes and bison, from which they also made clothing and tools. To kill a beast weighing several tons, the Aborigines devised an elegant method. They found buffalo pastures with a cliff nearby, deepened a pit, laying sharp objects at the bottom, and then one of the hunters wore a calf's skin and attracted the herd's attention with cries. When the herd began to move towards the cliff, other hunters emerged from hiding, causing a commotion. Frightened by the cries and sudden movements, the animals simply ran off the cliff into the abyss, broke their necks, and became the tribe's prey. In Canada, for example, UNESCO has included such 11-meter cliffs in the list of World Heritage Sites. Eskimos fed on huge northern deer, and to avoid dragging the carcass dozens of kilometers to the tribe's camp, they first wounded the deer and then, imitating the behavior of a wolf pack, drove it to the river where they killed it, loaded it onto a boat, and calmly sailed home. Such elegant hunting techniques are not invented by idiots, and logically the brains of people of the Ice Age were 10 to 15% larger than ours. Literally, in 2021, it was believed that the brain began to shrink just when the Earth warmed up, and people stopped playing the royal battle for survival every day. But 2 years ago, researchers at Boston University, having studied the world collection of human remains, came to an even more offensive conclusion for us. The average brain volume decreased just 3,000 years ago. That is, by historical standards, quite recently. It should, of course, be clarified that a large brain does not mean that our hero and his contemporaries were geniuses with an IQ equal to 300. This rather means that they were better oriented in the terrain, played with animals in 5D chess, devising cruel plans, and planned the life of the tribe a month in advance, which was really necessary. After all, one mammoth, for example, could provide a community of 10 people with food for almost a year. It was just necessary to plan which meat to freeze, which to cook, which to make dried, and so on and so forth. Add to this constant travel and you get a whole equation that cannot be compared to our trip to the store with a list. A large brain gave our hero curiosity and creativity as a side effect. Everyone is aware of cave paintings, palm prints, and other attempts by Ice Age people at self-expression. Only not everyone knows that this was often done spontaneously and not even close to the caves where these people lived. A striking example is the event in the Basura cave in northern Italy in 2019. Scientists, thanks to traces and palm prints, conducted a detailed reconstruction of what happened in that cave 14,000 years ago. One fine day, lighting their way with pine torches, 5 people entered, 2 adults and 3 children, the eldest of whom was 11 and the youngest only 3 years old. An adult man led the way and the baby was at the back. A dog of an unknown breed traveled with the family. Having walked 150 meters deep, the group discovered that the ceiling narrowed and the corridor turned into a tunnel 80 centimeters high. This did not stop the family. They crawled inside on all fours. The elder periodically stopped and apparently assessed the danger of the path. Not even a small pond of mud, which perfectly preserved the traces to the present day, stopped the team. Having overcome it, the family found a large hall with beautiful stalagmites and began to frolic. Adults left handprints on the ceiling with charcoal. Children dug in the clay and touched the stalagmites. This lasted a couple of minutes, and then the group simply turned around and left, never looking into this cave again. What was it all about? Archaeologists have an internal meme. If you can't explain the purpose of an object or procedure, call everything a ritual, as if the family was performing some kind of ceremony related to the gods or beliefs. But more modern scientists tend to believe that the group was simply having fun and possibly talking about a banal hobby of the Ice Age, the roots of which, again, lie in the huge brains requiring knowledge of everything around. Now, historians are gradually moving away from prejudices that everything in the life of ancient people was subject to ritual. In their place comes a more down-to-earth transition, logically assuming that people in those times were people and sometimes did whatever they wanted without any clear plans. Prejudices are gradually being washed away from children, who for centuries were considered a useless appendage to adults. In reality, during the times of our hero, children made up half of the planet's population. Now this figure is 25%, and it is clear that such a horde, albeit small, but people, had to take part in the life of the tribe. This is indeed the case. Fresh finds suggest that Ice Age children helped adults in making tools and hunting, could rush to gather berries at a very young age, visited hunting to gain experience and prepare for the future. Judging by what we have now, they succeeded. During the Ice Age, the Earth's population did not exceed a couple of million people. When the ice finally retreated about 14,000 years ago, the figure began to grow explosively, reaching a couple of 100 million by the beginning of our era. Nature released humanity from its icy grip. But judging by what is happening around, the gift was not appreciated. Until new meetings, friends.